Good afternoon. Happy Tuesday, September 29th, and welcome to Find the Energy to Lead. Thank you for investing in yourself as well and taking an hour to see what you can do to be more effective with the people you count on. What I'd like to do in terms of a little housekeeping is that if you have any questions, just email them to me at don@donbrown.org. Also, to let you know, we're recording this webinar so that we can send it out to you and that you can share it with those you want to turn on to some of the information. In that case, my name is Don Brown. You know, most of you know me from several things, either working together or having done webinars together on return on leadership and learning to be present. For those of you that don't, I do four things, really. I write, speak, coach, and sell. And really, when you boil it down, when it all comes down to it, I help people with people. And that might be, like I said, writing, or I might do it one-on-one coaching, or I might do it one on several hundred in a speaking engagement. But I guess my point of view in doing this is I'm always looking for simple truths. I'm always looking for the very uncomplicated, indisputable truths that we can learn without taking the lumps, put it that way. And I'll give you something else. You know, if I think of it, yeah, my point of view is simple truths, but over the last 10 or 15 years, I've realized that my dharma, my purpose, has a lot to do with this character that you see before you right now. The character is one of happiness, and this one happens to be a Vietnamese version, but it deals with not only happiness, but even a little bit extra. I was in a hotel once on a client engagement, and there was an elevator full of Chinese students, young Chinese students that were there for a summer engagement, a summer program. And one of them had seen my ring, which sports this character, and said, "Oh, I like your ring." And I said, "Yeah, happy." And she said, "And lucky." So it also has to do, and there are Chinese versions, Japanese versions, many others, but it has to do with not only happiness, but that idea of happy-go-lucky. To me, the two go together. So the interesting thing, when I look at that idea of my dharma being about helping people with happiness, helping people with it, is, first of all, let's take a look at what happiness is. When I deal with that, it's not some panacea. It's not some mystical idea that's somewhere out either in the clouds or in the future. It's simply about abundance and contentment. It's about the combination of abundance and contentment, the balance of it. So when I look at that, what I try to do is help people with that balance of abundance and contentment. So when you look at that, if that's what it is, you also might ask, why does it matter? We're talking here about finding the energy to lead. And for me, the idea is that there is a connection, because happiness enables passion, and passion is what gives you energy. Happiness enables your passion. Your passion is what drives energy. So as we look at this is what not only happiness is, but why it matters, why it's important. And some people will ask me too. I work with a lot of individuals that talk about happiness and that, and they talk about how happy they are or are not in their jobs. And the thing I'd like to bring up first is that, where does happiness live? The number one indicator of job satisfaction is what we call core self-evaluation. That's where it lives. Core self-evaluation is just simply, how happy are you with you? That's where happiness lives. And when we think of this, if happiness enables passion, and passion gives us the energy to lead, because leadership is a full service, full-time job. It isn't self-serve. So if it comes out of happiness, and if happiness is inside of us, that gives us a way to create the energy we need. We aren't victims of our environment. We aren't victims of our current circumstance. You know, and I look at that too, where I had someone I was coaching, a woman, a very high executive, that she said, well, I'm looking for another job and I'd like three things. I'd like a challenge. I'd like compensation for my contributions. And I'd also like some satisfaction, some happiness out of it. And I said, well, you know what? There's a lot of jobs that'll give you 2 out of 3, but you bring the happiness to the equation, not the other way around. It doesn't bring it to you. So if I look at this equation of happiness and passion and energy, because most of you are leaders for a reason, yes, that number one predictor of job satisfaction is not out of the job. It's how happy are you with you. You bring happiness. That to me is the first simple truth here is you bring happiness to the job, and therefore you bring your own energy. You're responsible for your own energy. The other side is this idea of manufactured versus organic. Manufactured happiness, by that I mean something where you make a choice to do something to make yourself happy. The equation is, the simple truth is, it's just as powerful as organic happiness. Organic happiness is, to me, is what sneaks up on you and surprises you. It's what comes up and something that happens to you. And I'll tell you what, the shelf life of organic happiness, something happened to you that you don't control, has a shelf life of about 90 days at most. And I say that very strongly, at most 90 days. So a simple truth is you bring happiness to the job. Another one is, you know what? Making yourself happy can have just as much impact or more as organic, as the happiness events that happen to you as a surprise, so to speak. The other one has to do, a simple truth, around frequency versus intensity. It doesn't have to be this massively life-changing event that makes you happy, and that's the only thing. It can be many small events. And matter of fact, the simple truth is that you want many small events that make you happy versus the one big event that happens once a year. So you want frequency over intensity. And matter of fact, you want manufactured as well as organic. So when it comes down to it, happiness does matter. And that's what drives the energy we can bring to leading others. Last question there, but how do I get there, Don? How do I get to that point? How do I get to happiness? Well, here's the simple truth. Secure your own mask first, just like the flight attendant says. It's not this idea of, gee, I'm going to take care of everybody else, and if I take care of everybody else, we'll be nice and happy. No, it's a matter of securing your own mask, and it goes contrary to a lot of paradigms that are alive and well out there. One of them is kind of that leaders are loners. As a whole, leaders think they're supposed to fix everything and everyone, and that they're supposed to do it alone. You've also got almost a 21st century badge of honor these days that it's almost a competition to see who has the most hectic life, the competition to find out how many things am I fixing, how many problems am I solving outside of myself. Throw in a time technology paradox that says, you know what, I got less and less time today, and most of it I'm spending on technology. It's not paperwork anymore, it's computer time, it's phone time. Take all those in together, and no wonder if I'm not looking after me, who is? You really think your boss is? As we look at this, for once, this is about you. When we ask, how do I get there? How do I find this happiness that I can manufacture for myself, that I can do frequently? Well, the way you do that is put your own mask on first, because I've got several people I coach within one group that their mantra is, you know, Don, my job is to drink the waterfall. It's my job to drink the waterfall every day. I drink all of the waterfall. There is no excuse for not drinking all the waterfall. There is no breaks from drinking the waterfall. Well, is there any wonder then why we get down? Is there any wonder to the point where we wonder, God, I feel awful today. Why is that? My back feels bad. My neck feels bad. My feet feel bad. My knees feel bad. In truth, many of us today, we don't even know how good we are actually meant to feel. A whole bunch of reasons for it. We won't go into them all right now, but the idea is we understand enough. What do we do about it? That's what we want to help you to get to. Most of us don't know how good that we're actually meant to feel. And what we do know is that you won't change anything about your life until you change something that you do every day. We change our life by changing something that we do every day. This is where we're going here. The idea of finding the energy to lead, we can do that. It's within our control. It's not outside our control. It's not this thing that says, you know what, I have to, I check emails before I go to bed. I'm getting emails from someone else. You have the ability to drive the energy that you have to lead those you count on and those you care about. So as we go do this, the main thing I want to give you here is that we do it not only by changing something new every day, we change habits, but we want to give you habits for life. Habits for life in terms of what I call operational definitions. Paul Hersey taught me that. An operational definition, and let's give it for the word habit. Definitions are a regular tendency, something that is hard to give up. A definition is an addictive process, an addictive practice, almost an automatic reaction. So that's what we mean by a habit. And a habit for life. Life, first of all, is not only what differentiates us from inorganic matter, from a pet rock, but a lifespan is the time we are separate from inorganic matter. That's what the definition is. We want to give you that time that that you aren't just a pet rock. We want to give you healthy habits. Life is also the capacity for growth and continuous change. It's a type of existence. It could be the good life, the bad life, the night life, my life. And in terms of descriptor too, life, when someone is full of life, it's considered to be full of vitality, vigor, and energy. We want to give you habits for that. So in doing that, then what I'd like to do is this isn't about diagnosing other people. It's not about your interactions with other people. It's not about the effectiveness habits that you're trying to generate. We're talking about habits for life, your life. And the way I'd like to do that is to bring someone in to do this for us by the name of Natalie Peterson. The speaker I want to turn you over to, she's here to share some of her powerfully unique perspectives on health and wellness. Now, she's a lifestyle change expert. She's got a master's degree in exercise physiology. She's a certified strength and conditioning specialist, a registered yoga teacher. And I'll tell you what, it was her background in organizational development and education with us that initially sparked her passion for individual rather than organizational development, for individual behavior change. So what I'd like to do with that idea of it's all within the context of how do you create energy because you can, and I know you need it because you're busier than you've ever been. Let me turn you over to Natalie Peterson.
Thank you very much, Don, both for the introduction and for allowing me to join you on the webinar today and share some of the perspectives that I have on the energy to lead. And as you mentioned, it was through my work with you in leadership development and behavior change that got me to understand how important individual lifestyle is. And we all know, we've all been a part of leadership trainings and development, and we all know how important the individual is to the overall organizational goals. It is the individual that carries out the tasks that reach our milestones. And so what I started thinking about, let's say, I think it was about 5 years ago, was how important the energy, the health, the wellness, the vitality of each individual person is to their team and to the organization at large. And so what I started to learn about and hone my expertise in is how can we target the physiological side of leaders? How can we make sure that the people on our teams are feeling their best and bring their best self into work every day? And so what I do, in addition to some of the training and leadership development work that I do here at donbrown.org, is also to help coach executives in healthy lifestyle choices. I help people bust through the busyness barriers that we all seem to have. And I've coached a lot of different people from a lot of different walks of life, from children all the way to professional athletes and everywhere in between. And it didn't really seem to matter who it was, but everybody was busy. Everybody had 25 things to get done and enough time for 10. And so it got me thinking, what is this busy doing to us? How is this affecting our lives on the whole? Because for a culture that has so many things to do and not enough time to do them, there are a lot of things we aren't getting done, a lot of things that are important to our joy, important to our lifestyle, important to our health and wellness that we don't have time for. We don't have time to take care of ourselves. We don't have time to have hobbies anymore. Some of us aren't getting enough time with our kids, our friends, our spouse. And so by earning this busyness badge of honor, how is that affecting our health in the long run? And in the short term, it starts to affect you in that, maybe you're not getting enough sleep, or you're experiencing more headaches than normal. But for some of us, it's physically making us sick. Sometimes the stress and the sleep deprivation and not eating right, not exercising, it's causing physical illness and injury. And so in addition to this culture of busyness, one other thing is also a common denominator for everyone that I have worked with and most people that I speak to today, and that is that everyone is looking for a happy and healthy lifestyle. No matter what they spend their days doing, we want a fulfilled life. We want to feel good, and we want to help others feel good too. And so for the rest of the time that I have with you today, I want to lay a foundation. I want to lay a foundation of 3 variables that will help you discover what your healthy lifestyle looks like. Because we all need something different. And as Don said, it is up to us to cultivate that happiness and to bring our best self into each day. But without a foundation, without knowing the how-to, it's really hard to get there. So I'll give you a couple of variables and try to implement some tips and how-tos, but listen for the things that resonate most with you. Listen for the things that ring true in your life that you think you can implement. It's really easy to Google and find information on exercise and on eating healthy out there on the internet. The problem is that experts contradict themselves every day. And so it's really hard, as someone who's trying to start a healthy lifestyle, it's really hard to find out, well, who do I follow? Who do I listen to? And what we want you to do is we want you to listen to yourself. What is your body telling you? Because we were developed to be able to understand how much movement we need, the right foods to eat, and how to recover. It's just that the culture of busyness has gotten in the way. So let's start with the first variable, movement. Just simply moving more and sitting less. More activity, more steps, more play, to combat the culture of sitting. Most of us spend, on average, 9 hours a day sitting. And for the great majority of us, that is more time than we even get to spend sleeping. And so through movement, we feel better. We sleep better, stimulates our brain function, it enhances our mood, and it increases our heart health and decreases blood pressure. So I'm going to give, for each foundational piece, I'm going to give a couple of tips. So under movement, our first one is to move your body every day. Every day, think about how you can move more and sit less. Can you walk at lunch? Can you go for a walking meeting, perhaps? Can you even stand while you're on the phone? Anything that gets you up and out of the chair. Perhaps parking farther away in the parking lot, taking the stairs. If you're watching one of your favorite television shows, can you do some stretches on the floor while you're watching? So moving your body every day. In addition, how can you plan in exercise? How can you make sure that you're getting that physical movement, that you're sweating, that you're challenging your body and getting stronger? And the reason why it's so important to combat sitting is that when we sit anatomically, we are doing nothing good for our body. Circulation is poor, our hips get tight, we have a sore back and shoulders from the posture that we're sitting in. And in fact, because of the disruption of blood flow that happens when we sit, our blood pressure can elevate, and so can our cholesterol. Over time, it does damage to our organs being in this position. So a couple of things to combat that, you'll see there on the screen. Sitting on an exercise ball while you work is something I adopted about 5 years ago. It keeps my core a little more reactive so I don't get to slouch. It keeps my hips a little bit more open, and overall helps me with better posture. And again, how can we do some gentle, simple stretches for our spine and for our hips? Move your body every day to combat sitting. And so when I say every day, the first thing I always hear is, how am I going to find the time for that? Every day you want me to exercise? The best way to find the time to exercise is to schedule your workouts. There is simply no other way to find the time other than making fitness a priority. And we make time for the things that we find most important. So if you make working out a priority, if you make your fitness a priority, and you schedule it into your calendar the way you do any other meeting or appointment you have in your life, that's when finding the time becomes a little easier. And 10 to 20 minutes is enough. You don't have to take an hour, hour and a half to get a workout in. A few other things that have been helpful for the people that I know are to work out with a friend, a spouse, or a coworker. Be accountable to someone other than yourself. Have a plan to meet someone somewhere. It makes it a lot less likely that you will bail. And get some guidance. Having a trainer who is trained and paid to motivate, to find the best workouts for your body and to help you meet goals. Us trainers, we went to school, we studied long and hard, and we know how to get the job done. In just the same way as you would hire an electrician, you would hire someone to come fix a computer problem that you have at the office, you would call in experts when it's outside of your realm of expertise. Call in a trainer, get some guidance in your health and fitness as well. And in addition to that, by investing in a trainer and having an appointment, again, one more way to make sure that you find the time. And lastly, making it something that you enjoy. If you're not enjoying the workouts that you're doing right now, or it's not fun for you, maybe ask yourself, is there something that is a little bit more fun and a little bit more enjoyable that you might be able to do? But the real question for all of us is, what do you have time for, you personally? Because we want to take it back to you as an individual. This is about you and your life and your schedule. What do you have time to do? And if you have a pen and paper with you now, I want you to answer these questions. Which days do you have 10 or 20 minutes to exercise? Think about your work week, your Monday through Friday. What's your schedule like? On which days can you spend 10 or 20 minutes in the morning or in the evening, perhaps at lunchtime, getting a quick workout in? Perhaps the longer workouts need to happen on the weekends. That's okay. But when do you have time to exercise? And the last question I'll pose is, what can you commit to? We don't want to suggest that if you don't have a fitness routine that you need to start exercising 5 days a week and it needs to be an hour. No. If you're doing nothing now, can you commit to one day of movement? One day of 10 to 20 minutes or even 30 to 60? What can you commit to personally? What will work in your life? Second tip or simple truth under our movement is to learn to enjoy exercise and to use exercise as a secret weapon. This is something that should increase your energy, and it should be something that should build you up. It shouldn't hurt you. And what we want to do with exercise is we want to build our endurance, our strength, our speed. And as we do that, we build confidence. And you'll see here that it shouldn't hurt you and it should build you up. And the reason I want to bring that up too is because we all need something a little bit different when it comes to fitness. We all know which exercises feel the best and what might hurt us. In fact, I have a friend who competes regularly in ultra marathons, running anywhere from 60 to 100 miles in a clip, and it makes her feel powerful. It invigorates her. I myself could not personally imagine feeling anything but hurting after a distance like that, if I could make it at all. For me, things like yoga, Pilates, lifting weights, those are the things that make me feel powerful. And in fact, even I was talking with Don yesterday when we were discussing this webinar, and he said, well, you know, I play soccer 3 times a week, and sometimes that leaves me feeling pretty beat up. It leaves me hurting the next day. Should I not do that? And I think there's a lot of athletes out there, perhaps listening to this webinar, that still play football, still play basketball and volleyball. And yeah, we get beat up, we get banged up, and sometimes we're kind of walking a little slower the next day. But what I asked Don was, does that fun you're having, does that friendship, the camaraderie that you get, does it outweigh that joint pain that you might have for the next half of the day, the next morning? And what he said was, heck yes. I mean, it's great. It doesn't affect any area of my life other than I'm a little sore the next day. And so that's where we differentiate. If it is affecting your life in a negative way to where you're in pain all the time, maybe you should consider something else. But if all it is doing is maybe slowing you down the next day because you had so much fun during your game, the thing I would suggest is maybe take the next day off, do some recovery modalities, make sure that your nutrition and that your recovery is on point, which we'll get to in a little bit here. But you certainly don't have to stop competing if it just bangs you up a little bit. Just make sure that you're taking care of your recovery. And for those of us who are still thinking, yeah, but I really don't like to exercise. It's not my thing. I hate it, don't like it. I want you to consider your self-talk. What are you telling yourself about exercise? Because our brain is a data processor, not a lie detector. So if all we're doing is repeating out loud and in our minds how much we don't like something, well, that's all we're going to know. That's all our brain is going to process. If we say to ourselves, I hate getting up early, there's no way I can get up and work out at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning, chances are you're going to fulfill that prophecy. How about instead, if before you went to bed every night, you said to yourself, I love getting up early before everyone else. Getting a workout in starts my day right. What if we changed the script? How would it affect your life? So then a few more questions to consider. Which types of exercise do you enjoy? What do you not enjoy? And then the last two, and they're important because I don't know that many of us take the time to ask this question of ourselves. We just go out and pound the pavement because it's the easiest thing to do, or that's what our neighbor said got him in shape. But what kinds of exercise make your body feel good, powerful, and strong? And on the flip side, which exercises cause your body pain? Writing these things down is really powerful. And I encourage you to consider that last one and not just do something for the sake of fitness. If you're running 10 miles a day, but your knees are killing you all the time, it might be a good time to consider some yoga or Pilates. See what taking some time away from those exercises that hurt your body, what it does for you and how it builds you up. Our last tip or simple truth in our movement variable is to strength train, to lift weights. This is the best way to achieve head to toe total body fitness. And it's also the best way to address any weaknesses that we have. I know a lot of people who have stopped working out because of an injury or because it hurts. But I think what a lot of people miss out on is all of the benefits of increasing strength, increasing balance and bone density. What it actually does is it decreases the risk of our injury, and it ends up decreasing our pain as well. Once we move and we open our body up, we get our blood flowing and we increase weak muscles, we remember how good we're meant to feel. And lastly, strength training, in my mind, develops resilience. When you are picking up heavy things and moving them around, it is hard. You do struggle, but that's life too. So as you increase your strength and your endurance and your ability to withstand, it will translate into your life. It teaches you how to deal with hardships, with things that you struggle in. And so that wraps up our movement variable. Move every day, learn to enjoy exercise, and lift weights. Now as we transition to our second variable, one of my favorite things to talk about is fuel or food, because we are what we eat. Everything we eat is either going to build us up or take away in some capacity. And the reason this is so important, I think, to talk about is that most people, they can figure out a way to move more. They can figure out a way to exercise or move their bodies a little bit more, but I think it becomes a little bit more difficult to figure out what to eat. To remember that we can't outtrain a bad diet. So if you're killing yourself in the gym, but you've received minimal results, look at what you're eating. Because 70 to 80% of your results happen in the kitchen. And a lot of people don't like to talk about this. They don't like to talk about food because it is so challenging to change. But that's why I want to make sure that we keep it simple. We make it something you can implement. And again, simple doesn't mean easy. And in this case, it's the simplest to understand, but perhaps the most difficult to implement. So the simple truth under our fuel variable is to eat real food. And the first word in this simple truth is so important too, is that we need to eat. We have to eat around 1,500 calories to perform just the vital functions of our body. So to be able to digest food, to circulate our blood, to breathe. We need 1,500 calories just to perform vital functions. So a lot of times the knee-jerk reaction when people are trying to lose weight is to cut their calories down. And instead of doing that, what I'd like to suggest is that you know what you're eating and you're making what you do eat of high quality. So eating your meats and your vegetables, your avocados and other good fats like nuts and legumes, things like that. Eating real food is eating ingredients. Real food doesn't tend to have ingredients, doesn't tend to come in a package. So consider how much of your diet consists of real food. And it can be really challenging to know exactly how to implement this, but one of the best ways is to know what you're eating. Look at the nutrition facts on the back of any package that you buy. Because we are going to buy packaged foods. We aren't always going to be able to make ourselves a home-cooked meal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. So instead of, like I was raised, reading the nutrition facts of how many calories and how many grams of fat, it's good information to know, but the most important part to look at on a nutrition label is going to be the ingredients. What is in your food? You want to look at especially the first couple of ingredients, those first three, because that is what the majority of the food you're eating is consisting of. And in any ingredient list, we want to avoid hydrogenated oils, artificial flavors, colors, sweeteners, corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, and soy and corn, because they tend to be highly genetically modified. So it can be really difficult to do this, but again, if we think about real foods are ingredients, they don't have ingredients. Can you read and recognize what is in your food that you're eating? Another way to make sure you're eating real food is to get rid of processed sugar. So these are the foods that have added sugar, not our fruits and our starches. I'm not talking about those type of whole roll foods. I'm talking about things that have added sugar, the candies, the ice creams, the cookies. And not only does sugar cause crashes later in the day, but it also increases body fat, increases blood pressure, increases the risk of heart disease and diabetes. And lastly, sugar is toxic to our liver. Our bodies were not meant to process so much extra sugar coming in through processed ingredients. And just to show you a real life example, I'll actually show these two side by side. We've got the almond Coco Loco Chobani breakfast, and then we've got the Chobani plain Greek yogurt. Both of them advertised as breakfast items. Both of them advertised as Greek yogurt, which is good for us, right? Yes, if you know what else is in it. So on the left, the almond chocolate dessert looking breakfast has 21 grams of sugar, while the plain Chobani Greek yogurt has 4. If you look at the ingredient list, the dessert breakfast Greek yogurt has in it not only the yogurt and the cultures, which is what Greek yogurt should be made of, but it has evaporated cane juice, which is sugar, almonds, coconut, sugar again, chocolate liqueur, cocoa powder, honey, other natural flavors. Again, things that don't make you think breakfast, it makes you think treat or dessert. And if you look on the right-hand side, the ingredients in that plain Chobani Greek yogurt is the non-fat milk, the cream, and the cultures. So you can see how vastly different these two are. So you can always take the plain Chobani Greek yogurt, add your blueberries, your nuts that aren't coated in sugar, add a little bit of maple syrup to sweeten it up. You can add these things in, but know where they come from. Not from a factory that adds them in and turns what is supposed to be a healthy breakfast into a dessert with 21 grams of sugar when you could be selecting something that only has 4 grams. So again, it's just as simply as turning the package over. Make sure you know what is going into your food, know what you're eating. And speaking of breakfast, that is a tip that I will give for eating real food. A healthy breakfast is going to set you up for success for the rest of your day. It is going to help control cravings. It helps kickstart your metabolism. What you eat at 7 a.m. is going to help predict what you eat at 3 or 4 in the afternoon when you're starting to get that crash, a little bit tired, you need to pick me up. It's also going to help predict what you eat at 10 or 11 o'clock at night when you're just snacky after dinner. So eating a good, healthy breakfast that has some protein and some healthy fat, a little bit of good carbs in there, it'll help you eat real food the rest of the day. And here's a strategy that I've implemented over the last couple of years, the 80-20 rule. What this means is that you are trying to eat 100% clean meaning no processed foods, no wine or other treats, 100% clean 80% of the time, and the other 20% of the time set aside for the things that you're going to eat in moderation, your cookie or piece of pizza, your beer or wine. And so if you think about it, over a 2-day period, if you eat 10 meals or snacks, think of 8 of 10 of those being 100% clean and the other 2 being set aside for your treats. And some people have said, well, that sounds great, but I think I'm going to stick with 70-30, or I think I'll try out just the 60-40 rule. That is fine. That is okay. Wherever you are, whatever works for you. What this 80-20 rule does above all other things is it helps get you present with what you're eating and what you're doing. So if you track that and keep a good tally on the 80-20 or the 70-30, you're that much more aware of what you're eating and hopefully eating more real food. Last couple tips in terms of making sure you eat real food is if it isn't in the house, you can't eat it. Don't stock your house with trigger foods. We all know those things that we can't just stop after 1 or 2 or after a serving size. If the chips get opened in our house, the bag is gone. So don't stock your house with trigger foods. I had a client I was coaching that depended on Diet Coke to fuel through his day. And there was a point where he said, you know what, I'm done with this. I don't want to drink it anymore. And he tried a whole bunch of things to try to quit drinking the Diet Coke. And he was probably consuming up to 30 to 40 Diet Cokes in a week, 3 or 4 a day. And what ended up finally working is to not keep it in the house or office. Said, you know what? I'm just not going to buy it anymore. If I want one, I'll have to leave, go get it, buy it, and consume it that way. And so by not keeping it in the house, he was able to cut down on the Diet Cokes from about 30 to 40 a week to about 3. So it doesn't have to be perfection. Look for progress. How can you get little wins when it comes to real food? And coming prepared is also really important as well. Coming prepared when you know that you're going to be on the road for a long time, if you know you're traveling, if you have a lunch meeting and you're not quite sure what's going to be on the buffet, you can bring some almonds, bring a peanut butter packet, bring a protein bar, something that can help you eat more real food. When we're looking at our fuel, the second simple truth or tip is going to be to hydrate. Drink half of your body weight in ounces of water every day. That's the first thing I have my clients that I'm coaching and training change. They always ask me, well, you know, where should I start with all of this? And the first question I ask is, how much water are you drinking? And the important thing here is that water is our toxin removal system. If we aren't drinking enough water, the toxins that our body wants to get rid of, they just stay stuck. And what happens is our brain communicates with the kidneys and kind of checks in to say, hey, how much extra water do we have to get rid of these toxins? And if the kidneys return the message and say, not enough, we got to hold on to it because we are made of water, our brain will just keep those toxins in. So this system is so important to eliminate toxins. And it also helps to fight fatigue. If we're hydrated, our joints are looser, our circulation's better, our digestion is better. We aren't as tired. It also helps to keep headaches away. It also helps with our skin. And lastly, the reason I bring it up too with clients that I'm working with first is because if anyone's looking for a weight loss solution, water is the number one thing that's going to help you metabolize fat as well. So we want to stay hydrated. If you have trouble staying hydrated, a couple of tips for you. Infuse your water. Set a reminder alarm on your phone every 60 minutes. Have an alarm that goes off telling you to drink 8 ounces. Lastly, carry a refillable water with you everywhere so that if you're ever in a pinch, you can just fill it up at a drinking fountain. So that brings our fuel variable to a close. What couple of things can you implement into your lifestyle? How can you eat more real food? How can you hydrate? And next, we're going to move on to the last variable, recovery. And recovery is something that most of us don't do enough of. And recovery is anything that we do that is self-care, that is to help us de-stress. And it's such an important thing because recovery is what helps us avoid burnout. When we're so busy all the time, we have to do the things that replenish us. Because what happens is that our body responds to any demand in our life by stimulating a stress response. Our blood pressure increases, heart rate increases, our digestion shuts down, fat metabolism shuts down, and we're ready for a fight, literally, which is great in nature if that's what we really need. But what happens if we never come down from that? What happens if our hormone level, our cortisol levels, which is our stress response hormone, what happens if that is always in our stress response state? Over time, it can lead to very serious illnesses and diseases. But in the short term, it disrupts our sleep, causes headaches. People can be affected with mild depression. We must take care of ourselves. And researchers have been looking into this whole idea of stress and recovery and are starting to find out that 40 to 60% of doctors' visits are stress related. That is, 40 to 60% of doctors' visits could be avoided if we just learned how to practice a little more self-care, to slow down, to say no. But since we're all so busy and we're not really sure how to find the time to do all of these things that are good for our health, how can you find a little more time to recover throughout your day? I've had several of my clients that I've coached lower their blood pressure, make physical changes to their health and wellness just by implementing a breathing practice into their life. Simply by breathing more consciously on their commutes, popping in some relaxing music, inhale through the nose for 4 counts, hold your breath for 2 counts, exhale through the nose for 4 counts. And simply repeating that pattern, whether it's the first thing in the morning when you wake up, during your commute, right before bed. How can you breathe more? And for all of us, relaxation looks different. Whether it's journaling, massage, meditation, reading a book, perhaps talking to a loved one, how can you get more self-care into your daily routine? In addition to this idea of self-care, what is so important in recovery is sleep. We must sleep more. Sleep is when our body repairs itself. It's when our repair system is 10 times more active. We're able to regenerate cells. We're able to reinforce new memories, learn new skills. So it can be really difficult to get more sleep, especially if we have a busy lifestyle and a busy schedule. But a couple of things that are very helpful to get more sleep, or to maybe even get 15 to 30 more minutes, are to cut the caffeine after noon. Don't drink alcohol before bed. It may help you fall asleep, but it tends to really disrupt sleep cycles, making it harder to get up in the morning and you feel more tired. Get rid of that stimuli and get a bedtime routine that is calming. Turning off the electronics in bed and before bed, that light that comes out of our phones or our iPads or anything that we have that we use, it messes with our brain function and it stimulates us rather than calms us down. Go to bed when you're tired. A lot of us stay up just a little bit longer hoping for a second wind, and many times we do catch it. The problem is that second wind takes us 2 to 3 hours past when we maybe should have gone to sleep in the first place. And lastly, exercise earlier in the day. Exercise is a stimulating activity. That's why it works for so many to work out early in the morning. So if you're finding that you're doing exercise at night and it's messing with your sleep cycle, is there a way for you to exercise earlier in the day? And for all of us to sleep 7 to 8 hours each night. Sleep deprivation is not a badge of honor you want to wear. I know that we hear all the time about executives that are able to pull it off with 4 or 5 hours of sleep, but there are still several successful people like Sheryl Sandberg, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, Ellen DeGeneres, the Dalai Lama, and Bill Gates, all of whom have been interviewed saying that they log between 7 and 9 hours of sleep every night. And second to hydration, this is, to me, the second place I start with individuals that are looking to live a little bit healthier, stay hydrated, and sleep more. So as we wrap up those 3 variables, movement, fuel, and recovery, continuing to think, how can I move more? How can I eat better food? And how can I implement recovery? I'm going to pass it back over to Don to introduce to you the number 1 habit to make room for in your life.
Thanks, Natalie. Boy, if you can't get a few good simple truths out of that process, I don't know where you could. I don't know where you could if you can't pull it out of there. When you start looking at this, we started with the idea of how do we find energy to lead? How do we get to that point? Then we said, you know what, that we can do it. We can manufacture happiness. It doesn't have to be what would I call it? It doesn't have to be organic happiness that just kind of falls on my head. I can make it happen. I'm responsible, and it comes out of me. Well, the number 1 habit, when people say, what's one thing I can do? The number 1 habit to start making room for in your life is to start being present for you. I work with a lot of groups. It's sales, service, leadership, in all kinds of intentional influence. I work with a lot of people, and the number 1 competency to be an effective leader, the number 1 to be an effective service provider or sales professional is to learn to be present, because most of us can't pay attention for about more than 20 seconds. Well, it comes down to it. How present are you for you? Even if I can get you to pay attention, if I can get you to increase awareness and intensify that awareness into attention with other people, how about with you? I know you've got, everybody listening here has as many little voices in their head as I do. I know maybe I've got a few more, but I know every one of us, every one of you has your gut that's telling you things. My gift to you would be is, you know what? The number 1 habit to make room for is to start paying a little bit of attention to you, taking time for you. And there's a really good way to do that. And there's an individual that you can also, if you ever want to, you can Google When Life Works on YouTube. And you can find out about the process of creating a When Life Works list. There's an individual, his name slips my mind right now, but you'll find it on YouTube, When Life Works. But the idea is to create a list for you. When life is best, what's going on? I'm showing you one here, and we've left you a spot here of trying to create 3 to 5 variables that are in play when life is good. And in my case, I took a look at my list, and life is best for me when I'm collecting data. In other words, when I'm surveying clients before the presentation, when I'm logging my calories into an app, when I'm measuring, if I measure, then I change. When I'm doing the following things daily: physical training and verbalizing gratitude. Life is best for me when I sell days. In other words, I'm going out and facilitating programs because that's what generates passive income. And finally, when I change things up, life is good. When I'm working with people I don't know in places I haven't been through a variety of methods, that's when life is good. That's when life is good. For Natalie, her list she put down is when she's living 80-20. Yeah, I'm one of those that struggles to find 70-30. And for her, life works when it's 80-20. Life works when she gets that 7 to 8 hours of sleep. When she's getting 5 workouts a week, including yoga. when there's daily meditation and journaling for her, when she gets a weekly date with someone she cares about, speaking, training, coaching, that's when life is good. She's trying to work into playing guitar, playing at volleyball, and reading something other than fiction. That's what her list consists of. You see what mine is? What does your list look like? When life is good, I challenge you to pick 3 to 5 variables that are in play when life is good for you, because that's what's going to help you. That's what's going to help you to have the kind of energy you need to lead. Making sure when you talk about manufacturing happiness, putting those variables into your life and making room for them by maybe stopping a negative one is what'll do it for you. And I would say too that you've got here a free gift that you can go to help you find your energy to lead. Everything that we've talked about that Natalie covered, particularly in terms of fuel and fit, is available at nataliepeterson.net/5-day reset. And it's a guide that gives you everything we've talked about. It gives you, for 5 days, it'll give you some workouts. It gives you, here's some diet, some menu suggestions. It gives you everything you need. And it's not a cleanse. It's not a, hey, let's have a miserable experience and feel that we're improving ourselves. What it does give you is kind of a 5-day reboot. I would strongly suggest you go grab it. The last thing I'd like to do here is we mentioned the idea that we would have some questions in that, and Natalie's been gathering them. And Natalie, tell me, what kind of questions do we have that have come out of the participants that have emailed to us?
Thanks, Don. The first question that came through, and I think this is a good one that applies to all of us, is what do I do to stay on track while I travel?
Oh, yeah. As somebody who's got a couple of million miles on Northwest and then Delta and that, there's a couple of things I would give you, and Natalie and I were even talking about this as we prepped for this. One of them is to, one of them is don't eat after 8 o'clock at night. You know, let's start with the fuel side. Don't eat after 8 o'clock. I mean, there's nothing worse than trying to sleep around a food baby, or suffering the meat sweats because you went and had knockwurst and brat and burnt ends at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. The other one, there was the gentleman that was the head of Flores Trans World Delivery at one time internationally that did a ton of global travel, and he said, well, don't drink and eat lightly. The other thing I would say too is one for me is a hotel room workout that gives me an opportunity to get some movement in for 30 minutes in the morning. Charges me up. So the last one is Natalie had mentioned too, is the idea of preparation. If you're traveling and you can bring some food, whether you're bringing food you've prepared for a long journey, or even if it's simply keeping a couple of protein bars in my briefcase so that I'm not eating the cheesesteak, that I'm not eating a hoagie and then sitting on an airplane for 3 hours. Take a protein bar and buy a banana. What other questions we got, Natalie?
Our next question that came through is, Don, where do I start?
Where do I start? I guess you've gotten a ton of ideas out of this hour, whether for me in terms of the fact that you can create happiness for yourself, that you can manufacture it, and all the ways that you can create energy for yourself physiologically. I guess the thing I would say about starting is, because I won't tell, for you, it might be recovery, it might be fuel, it might be movement. It doesn't matter which one it is. I'd say I'll paraphrase or I'll quote Todd Durkin, a friend and associate, in his comment of get 1% better every day. It's not about, let me start out with quitting smoking, getting fit, losing weight, getting a new job, moving across country, and starting a new relationship all at once. That just isn't going to happen. Pick one thing. I used to love donuts. And apple fritters. Well, God, an apple fritter will give you your daily 1,500 calories, and that's a problem. Uh, and what I ended up doing, and I haven't had donuts in years, but what I ended up doing is I replaced my response to the environmental stimulus. You know, if it's in the morning and you've have a little bit of an energy lull, and mine was to, hey, I've got a little sweet tooth, and you eat an apple fritter. Trust me, it'll wake you up for a while, with a crash, of course. But in my case, I substituted highly darks, 88% dark chocolate, and I have 4 to 6 pieces. And it says on the package that it's organic dark chocolate. Says 7 pieces as a serving, but I'll have 4 to 6, and that's what I've replaced it with. Now, when you're talking about starting out, pick something, one thing, just one thing. It's about you don't have to do much, but you got to do something. And so for starting out, is find one thing you can do. Make your life 1% better now. You know, pick that habit for life, something that fits into your life. That would be mine. And even if it's just replacing all those donuts with a couple little pieces of chocolate, trust me, it works wonders. How about, do we have time for one more?
Yeah, we've got a good one here, I think, and this is going to be directed at the leaders of teams. I have an individual here who says, Don, I lead a team, and we are all very hard workers, and we have a lot of demands placed on us. For someone who works long hours, how do you suggest implementing this into a team setting?
Into a team setting, and the unspoken being, you know what? How do I get my people to do it? This is what I think I'm hearing. And in a team setting, in answer to both of those, whether it's how do I make it happen and how do I share this with my people, share the webinar. We're sending a recording to everybody that participated. Share the webinar with them. But when it comes down to it, as my buddy Marshall says, if you want a better world, you go first. What is it that you're willing to do? You know, as that leader of that team, first of all, that's not your zoo. That's not your monkey. What someone else does. You can share the tools with them. You can try and make it happen. Heck, matter of fact, you can bring us in and work with your organization. It's one way to help spread the word. But the other is what example are you setting? What are you doing? And by doing that, by you taking it on and even advertising what you're doing, that's what establishes it. That's what establishes it for the leader of the most important team we've got on the planet, which is a family. If you say don't smoke, but you smoke, what are the chances your kids will? What are the chances your kids will cuss if you do? So I guess that's the way I would put that, is the idea of just pick one thing. Just pick one thing and work on it until it doesn't matter anymore. Sticky buns and donuts and things, they're not an issue for me anymore. They don't matter for me anymore. And then now, trust me, I've got plenty of things to work on. But that one, not so much, not anymore. So I would leave that as a challenge for you, and even a charge for you, is to pick some things for yourself that you can begin with, no matter where you are on the journey. Pick something that resonated with you today and try it on. Try it on as one of your habits for life. The other thing I would do too is charge you with, spread it through your organization. Talk to the people that are responsible for these kind of things in your organization. If you're wanting to spread it for your team, likely there are others within the organization that would appreciate the focus too. Spread it. Bring us in. That's one way to do that. Spread it, and you can bring us in virtually, physically, either way. So in doing that, I thank you all for your time and attention, your presence today. I wish you happiness. I wish you happy-go-lucky. Natalie?